This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Podcast of all things kayak fishing. We are hosts are a bunch of long-time fishermen who decided to get in the kayak fishing world, and guess what? They're taking you along for the ride. So buckle in and welcome to Paddle Fin.
Welcome back to another live show here at the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We got some good old boys coming on this evening. Just wanted to welcome everybody here. Get ready for Duke Westcamp, Vasily. The boys running Ketch Outdoors. Going to do a little giveaway tonight, so you guys better pay attention. Which for this evening, you're definitely going to want to share this post. Like the Paddle and Fin podcast page if you don't already, because that is your ticket in. So you must share this post. Also, drop in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. And we'll get this thing started here in a second. As you guys can see at the bottom of the screen, we got our typical show schedule rolling. So if you want to catch other podcast here at the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, you can tune in on any major podcast platform. Tonight, like I said, we are going to talk with Duke Westcamp of Ketch Outdoors and one of his cameramen, Vasily, and we'll get this thing kicked off. Let me pull these boys in.
We've lost Brian here. Me and you are running the show now.
So what's it like being a parent?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Strongly discourage it.
Not recommended. I don't think either one of us are
Gentlemen,
optimized
welcome.
What's happening, Brian?
Well, I wanted to kick this off by saying congrats to both of you. I know you're both brand new fathers again. Vasily, this is number 2. Duke, this is number 3, right?
No, just 2, thankfully.
2 and 2. Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, congrats to you both, man. I'm sure you guys are at a lack of sleep currently and taking time away from the newborns to be here. So thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. Wanted to start off. I know there's a lot of questions, Duke. We don't want to talk too much about Ketch boards, but I know there's been a few questions about the new plastic boards. You got a release date for those yet for folks that are curious?
We're really hoping to have it ready by June 1st, but it's we've made kind of some 11th hour changes to improve the product. So don't hold me to that date. It'll be sometime in June, hopefully. But until, with vendors in this business, you got to add, 50% onto what they tell you. And what they're telling me is that it should be ready on time, but I don't trust anybody until I have the product in hand. I have the blanks in hand to start engraving them. I won't believe it. So we're hoping for June. Definitely going to be ready to go out to retailers that are in the ice fishing market. In time for that. That was kind of the deadline. I apologize to the kayak community who's really hoping to be ready before this year. Before this year's season started, it was just too much and rushing, that much. That it's a pretty expensive tool to build this product. So rushing it was just not an option.
Right on. No, I thought I saw that, and I figured I'd give you an opportunity here to maybe update some folks. I know you've been kind of busy trying to keep up with it, on Facebook and things like that. So I know there's a lot of folks stoked about it to get a little bit lighter weight product compared to the normal catch board, but I don't know, man, you can't beat the normal catch board. So I don't know what everybody's complaining about.
I like the original, but it's the tough thing with the kayak market is there's a lot of us that fish out of a kayak because we just enjoy fishing out of a kayak more than a boat, but there's plenty of people that are in the kayak world because it's the easiest way to get involved in tournament fishing and get off the bank, and it's inexpensive. And so the biggest thing for us was to have a product that was about half the price,
right.
That you don't have to draw the line on, that floats, that that's actually an accurate measurement device. So it was more cost driven than weight driven, to be honest with you.
Now, you said that it's the most accurate measuring device. When they measured your newborn son at the hospital, was their measurement accurate? Because I know you put your son on a catch board. So was it true? Was it accurate?
The medical measurement devices actually leave a lot to be desired. My dad has been, who's one of the guys that's involved on the day to day over here. He's been trying to get me to go after the medical market, and it's one of those things. I just don't know that they're so concerned over, a quarter of, a 10,000ths of an inch or an eighth of an inch. They're just kind of trying to get a rough measurement, but it was.
I mean, that could open up some doors, dude. That could open.
We came up with the same measurement, but I had to get him to point his toes to get to 22 and a half. So it's kind of like the mouth being open. I don't know if that was exactly a legal measurement,
I love it, man. Well, very cool. So all of you folks out there tuning in, there's your answer if you're waiting on the new catch board to be released. But tonight we want to talk about Ketch Outdoors, man. I'm a huge fan. Every time you guys release an episode, it's just like, all right, what else could they do to make it better? So it's very cool, man. I've had very little interaction with Vasily. We met at Crossroads, had some cool conversations, and I think what he brings to the table is kind of interesting, right? Because Vasily, you're not a fisherman at all, right? Like, you didn't step into a kayak until you started this whole deal with Duke, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, the first time that I did step into a kayak, he brought me to probably one of the more difficult landscapes to navigate, which was upper Minnesota. That was fun and interesting.
You didn't just ease him into it, Duke. You threw him right into the fire.
His first experience with a kayak was we portaged. We went to the Boundary Waters up in northern Minnesota, and we had to hike gear in. It was about a 2-mile hike. We made 3 trips. So, in order to get the drone, all the camera equipment, the camping gear, all the food, everything out, it took us 3 trips. So he was in actually a Kevlar canoe. The first time he paddled, a Kevlar canoe with about 150 to 200 pounds of gear in it. And then we got rain for 5 straight days.
Oh man.
It was trial by fire for sure.
And you didn't quit after that?
I think it was as good as it gets for me.
Keep questioning it.
We did see a handful of people lugging in beer. That was an interesting and questionable thing to do. But we were hauling in our canoes and everything that we could possibly need. In addition to that,
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, kayak fishing, it's simple, but it's not, right? And I can only imagine when you guys are hauling all kinds of gear around, cameras, drones, extra batteries, lenses, all that crap. I mean, it can get very tiresome, so to speak. But It's very cool, man. So here's my question: like, how did you two get connected? Like, how did this relationship start up?
I'm good friends with. I mean, Vasily and I have kind of known each other tangentially forever. His brother is a really close friend of mine, and when I did MMA, his name's Ethan. No one calls him that. We call him Captain Zupo. He's just been a good friend of mine for years and years and years. And so, actually, the first when I became aware of Vasily's talent for video was he came up for my bachelor party when I was getting married, and brought his drone and brought a GoPro and put together. I call it a little stupid video because he didn't take much time doing it. He just kind of grabbed bits and pieces here and there, and he put something together, and it was really cool. And it just, it took 8 or 10 years for me to kind of see the ability to kind of work that into my world. But that's how we've met each other. I mean, we've had common friends since high school. So 20 plus years.
Well,
Yeah, crazy.
Really throwing us
Crazy.
right into the deep end, because as soon as we went to the Boundary Waters the first time, that was kind of the point where we really put everything to the test and just had fun with it. So I think that was the catalyst for a lot of what we did after that.
Very cool, man. So, I mean, were you guys sitting around a campfire and you were like, hey, we should make kayak fishing videos? I mean, what was the thought process behind it? I mean, I know, Ketch, your brand, Duke, is behind it, but I mean, what was the whole thought process involved in this? Was it like, hey, let's try this and sounds like a cool idea? Or was it like a marketing strategy for you guys? Or what were you thinking when this all came about, man?
I just saw a talented guy that, and I had a marketing outlet for his skill set, and, finding talented, hardworking people is difficult these days. You run your own business, you're well aware of that problem. So, it was one of those things, it was, I've firmly believed that there's, something special about kayak fishing and the people that do it. And to be able to show some of that, I thought was, it was important. And, as far as, having the means to do it, we had a business that needed, I had drastically underspent on any of our marketing initiatives. And so I figured, hey, let's go all in with this. And it's a way to support their team anglers. It's a way to build the sport, and it's a way to show it, in a little bit of a different light. And, I said that we went on that first Boundary Waters trip because I said, hey, it's not going to get any harder than this. So let's try to, let's see what we can get, we still do it to this day. We don't really go out with a plan. We're just, Vasily really just is a documentarian. He's just wants to capture what's in front of him. There's none of it scripted. And it's just, kind of a fresh look, it'll keep changing and developing, but the idea behind it was essentially, hey, we can market, Ketch Products, with the videos, so we can afford to do it. And, I don't know, Vasily can tell you a little bit about where he was at with what he was doing. And I think he was just kind of spent a little bit on what he was doing. And so I think it sounded like a good idea to both of us.
Yeah, right on, man. I mean, so Vasily, what is your background as far as like filmography and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so the first camera I picked up was one of those handy cams back when it was film and
Nice.
You had to use a VCR to edit. And, you plug in your Discman and that's how you got the music in there. And I was, I think, attempting to get skateboarding footage or snowboarding footage or whatever you could put a handy cam on motorcycles. Nice. And all that. And took a little bit of a hiatus doing photography instead. So the wedding industry was sort of my kick in the butt, and really got me shooting more candidly. And so I do these weddings where my wife would shoot the ladies and I would shoot the groomsmen. And I was kind of on my own and thrown into the deep end. But that's where I had the most fun because I could, shoot a close up of the ring, or I could catch certain moments. And that's where I did a lot of the heavy lifting and I think really sculpted what I enjoy the most about shooting to begin with. So, fast forwarding to the Boundary Waters, this was kind of a combination of looking for what the best way to present my experience. So in other words, enjoying what we're doing and where we're at, but also trying to showcase it in the most palpable way possible. And
Sure.
yeah, and I think just shooting what I'm interested in and being around people who are passionate about what they're doing. So I just like things that are pleasing to the eye when it comes to photography or videography, but I don't want to just shoot, spiders in the backyard. I want to see people, competing or doing what they love, aiming for something that's, more than just, more than just having fun. They're really pushing themselves, and I want to catch that, and I want to show it in a way that's fun to watch and entertaining as well.
Well, I think you guys do a pretty awesome job at captivating that. I mean, anybody that doesn't know Vasily and himself, he's not a fisherman. He's not a fisherman at all. And I think that plays such a huge role into the outcome of your videos, because you're coming into it where you know absolutely nothing and you're capturing it from a different point of view. And you're capturing it from a point of view from maybe somebody that knows nothing about kayak fishing, and you're making it a huge draw for them to, you're captivating that audience and bringing them in from a beginner's point of view, which is great. But not only that, but, there's many people that I've talked to that are advanced anglers or, just club anglers, whatever. And they're just like, man, how do you beat this? It's badass. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, what you guys are doing is just completely amazing. And, I think your eye for things and your B-roll, I mean, come on, who can argue about that? I know I had a conversation with Duke about one of the recent videos up at La Crosse, and he was like, I wasn't super happy with it. And I'm like, dude, that drone footage, like, some of the camera angles you got on that were just absolutely spectacular. So I think it's hard when, because I know myself when I, try to edit a video or put a video together, and I'm always not really satisfied with it. But then I have people come to me that are just like, oh, that was pretty dope, man. Great job. Keep it up. I mean, you guys feel that same way where you're kind of just nitpicking through everything to make it that perfect masterpiece? Or do you guys just kind of go with the flow and let it rock?
Yeah, the feedback is huge. I know a little bit about fishing. I know you throw the stick and you turn the little spinner. Hopefully you get a fish on the end of it. But what I think is just as raw as it gets is there's people doing what they love in a place that there's a lot to see, and it's more than just the fishing. And so I enjoy myself, I think, as much as the anglers do. And I feed off of that a lot. I want to share that, and I want to be there and present for it too. So it's a little bit of a juggle to try and be behind the camera, but also present with nature. So I think one of my favorite things to do is shoot the B-roll. Because as you may know, there's sometimes chunks of time where nothing's going on, and there's a lot to be seen around you. And if you're in a tournament, I get it, you're focused on what you're doing. But if you're the guy in the kayak next to the person competing in the tournament, you really do see a lot of what's going on around. And I think all that stuff is about as good as it gets for someone shooting video.
No, I completely agree, man. I know. Go ahead, Duke. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that, to your point that Vasily brings a unique perspective to it because he's not an angler. I agree with that 100%. And I think, we've all seen GoPro footage, ad nauseum on YouTube and Facebook and all that. And I think the idea was, like give people something that's a little more visually captivating, while still incorporating some of the elements, that anglers are using when they're self shooting. But we thought it was, more, you could show a lot more when there was at least one dedicated guy that wasn't ever holding a fishing rod. And, and to Vasily's point, he really enjoys this as much as we enjoy fishing. I mean, there's a smile on his face when we're out on the water and he looks forward to it. And, that's the same. You can see it in the end result is that he has the same passion about shooting video as we do fishing. And to be very clear, he shoots, just about 99% of the video. Occasionally, you'll see something where I'm holding a selfie stick and getting something underwater or, but for the most part, it's him. I have a little videography experience, but nothing like him. He's mostly, if there's anything that I shoot that ends up in the videos, it's because he was coaching me how to do it,
Well, you're a good coach, Vasily. Just saying, man. Pat yourself on the back. And good job, man.
Thank you. There's a lot of parallels to fishing, and really that's kind of what I'm doing. Anyways, I'm fishing for the same thing. I'm fishing for something similar. I'm waiting and I'm anticipating somebody to do something big, and especially a moment that's maybe going to give them an edge up in the rankings, or just maybe get their personal best. Those are things that I can feel that I want them to succeed, and there's a little bit of empathy going on. I'm kind of sharing the experience with them, and I think what better way than to just get as much as I can of what's going around.
Yeah, man, I dig it. I mean, it's so hard to put in words, man. I mean, I saw you at Crossroads, and I think everybody was coming and checking in, and I had noticed you over getting some B-roll footage, and you were taking 20 different angles in one shot, and it was cool to see that, man. I mean, I wish I could be as good of a cameraman as yourself. I've tried to dabble in it a little bit, and I think what you're doing is awesome. I mean, you got a great eye for things. The B-roll footage never disappoints on any of the Ketch videos. So I mean, it's huge. So real quick, guys, if you're not already subscribed to the Ketch Outdoors YouTube channel, write that down after the podcast. Go click that subscribe button. Also, if you're just tuning in, share this live stream, and we are going to pick a winner for a paddle and fin Ketch board. We're going to engrave your name right on the top of the fence, and we're going to pick a winner for that after the stream ends. So if you're just tuning in, make sure you do that. So Vasily, man, I mean, you spend 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day in a kayak. I mean, do you have an interest in picking up that fishing rod now that you can see, I mean, you're following around some of the top anglers in the kayak community. I mean, does that give you an itch seeing these guys just slamming fish all day long? I mean, and not only that, but do you see the ups and downs? So
yeah,
any interest? We're going to see you fishing? I mean, maybe hitting the KBF Trail Series soon or something.
Yeah, people would be a little suspect if I just came in and won the thing. And to your point earlier, one of the best parts about it is getting immersed. So I think I just get a little carried away when my office is the kayak and I have about as much equipment as the next guy. I'm trying to convince myself to take a day and not do that, and instead throw a reel. But
the spinny thing.
Yes, the the hook.
The rod and the
well, and I guess here's where I'm at with all this. I actually just really like eating the fish. So if there's an incentive on the end of it, I'm not going to be joining any tournaments anytime soon. But if there's a reason to fish, I think the next time we're doing it recreationally, and we're not so caught up in trying to get footage, I'd absolutely love going out there, and it doesn't need to be anything specific. Just whatever I pull out of the water would make me happy.
Very cool, man. Well, I know you guys kind of travel around all over the place. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunities, in the long run for you, man. So one of the questions I had, man, I mean, on average, per episode, your guys' videos are usually, 6 to 10 minutes long. I mean, how much footage are you guys actually shooting to make that 6 to 8 minute or 6 to 10 minute video?
There's a lot left on the cutting room floor at the end of it. I'm sure I could circle back to any one of these projects and put together more. We're not doing any
4 days.
Sorry.
4 days seems to be the magic number.
Yeah. I end up having 100 gigabytes. And
nice.
Really just a whole lot of nothing sometimes, but there's just a lot to be seen, and I'm happy to do the editing. It's actually a lot of fun, but I do spend a ton of time in there.
Right on. I mean, that was my next question, man. Like, who does all the editing? Who does all the post-production stuff? Is it you guys jointly, or is it just Vasily? Duke, you throwing input on it?
No, that guy right there.
Yeah.
The mirror imaging is doing it.
Yeah, and it's just like anything else. You sift through it, and I think every project is its own. In its own embryonic state, you work with it and hope that you satisfy the angler. I mean, that's actually what I want to do first and foremost, is make sure the person I'm shooting is, feels good about what we did, and really the rest of it is just entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, right on, man. I dig it. So, I mean, if you guys had to break down out of all the videos you guys have put out so far, you guys got a favorite so far?
Dusty at Lake St. Clair for sure.
Yeah, I might have to agree with that. That's a pretty good one. We had favorable conditions. Dusty is really a hell of a guy. There's no better way to put it. Yeah, he's great to watch.
Yeah.
I try to stay out of his way, and that's not always the case. I think a lot of times they may be muttering under their breath a little bit, but we had calm waters, and he did just fantastic that day.
Yeah, I mean, he caught some just. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
The stuff that we did in the boundary waters the first year was also some of my favorite stuff, but it's not going to be a viewer favorite. It was just a favorite because of, like, I know what we went through to get that footage that first year, camping and canoeing and portaging and all that. It's so there's a lot of sentimental value to that shoot, but the Lake St. Clair footage is like that intersection of, you get the weather, you get the angler, he's catching fish.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times when we're out of town, there's a half a dozen or 8 guys, from Team Ketch that are fishing the event, and they're all sticks. Who do you follow? Yeah. And,
right.
We followed Dwayne Taff and Jamie Brode. Jamie Brode is a 10 qualifier, and Dwayne Taff is a former national champion. And so we decided to follow them day one in lacrosse. And meanwhile, Jamie Dennison was the one that was sitting at second place or third place after day one. And right. So it's, that's the unique thing about it, is you don't know who's going to hit on what day, especially when you're shooting the tournament footage. It's so hard to predict.
Sure.
So you just kind of make your best guess. And, that's why the Lake St. Clair thing was just kind of because the other two guys that were in town for the Lake St. Clair event were Kurt Smits, former national champion, and Mitchell White, who's also a national level angler. And I just had a gut feeling. Dusty catches smallmouth. There's a great smallmouth bite here, and so it was like the perfect intersection of opportunity, and we ended up with some of the best footage that we got all year for sure.
No, I agree, man. That video came out spectacular. Dusty is quite a stick, especially when it comes to Michigan and smallmouth. I mean, that kid, anytime he fishes a tournament up that way, he's just crushing it. He's got that jerkbait bite down pretty good. So, but I mean, and that's the thing, man. I've always wondered, like, are you guys talking back at the catch house to see who's on them and whatnot in order to pick what direction to go to shoot during a tournament, or is it all a crapshoot? Are you rolling the dice and hoping you guys hit, and then if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't, right?
Basically, I mean, it is a crapshoot. The event that comes to mind was Arkansas for the FLW Cup. We had a few guys in town, and if you were down there, you knew how rough that bite was. It was 100 degrees in the shade every day. Water temperatures were really high. I don't remember offhand. I don't want to, give it a number, but it was, upper 80s, lower 90-degree water temperatures. And, there were small fish to be caught, and no one was really on fire during pre-fishing. And so you just kind of got to take a guess. And, the guess ended up being Dwayne Beatty. Hey, he's from Arkansas. That was the thought process, really. That was it. Right. Dwayne's from Arkansas. If anyone's going to figure it out, it's Dwayne. And he was slow in pre-fishing. We followed him for 2 days. In pre-fishing, and I mean, he wasn't exactly, lights out in pre-fishing. He was catching fish, but not a whole lot of them. And it was slow going, but it was just one of those things. We had to make a decision, and I bet on the Arkansas local, and it ended up being the right bet, because he finished second in that event, and he put up a huge day 2 total to go from like 19th to second. Yeah. So, it's some of it's luck. It's just we're fishing for footage when we're out there, and you don't know who's going to catch the fish. There's plenty of good guys that go out there and struggle, and there's plenty of guys that have no business putting up a good limit. They go out and put up a good limit. That's just the long and short of fishing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call it fishing and not catching, right? But
exactly.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I remember talking to Dwayne right about the time that video dropped. If you guys are new to following the podcast, you guys can go back into the archives and dig that one out. That was a great conversation with Dwayne Beatty about that tournament and many other things. But I'd have to say, dude, that was one of my favorites, man. It turned out really, really nice. And I thought it was definitely a cool storyline, because he, like you said, he did not finish very well, starting off. But coming back day 2, I mean, nobody, I don't think, had an idea that he could come from that low in the standings and all the way back to the top. And the fact that you guys captivated that on camera is clutch. Super huge. So,
right.
I guess that was a good. Yeah. Well, I was going to bring that up because he talked about that. He's like, Duke text messaged me, and I dropped him a pin, and those guys have a rough time keeping up with me because that's the way he fishes. He just likes to cover water.
You have no idea. I challenge you to go fishing with that man. He does not stop. Dwayne is the reason that we're putting trolling motors on both of our rigs this year. I have no idea. I don't know exactly how old Dwayne is. I know he's older than I am, but I mean, he keeps that Hobie moving like 2 miles an hour all day, nonstop. And he probably covered, I don't know, 12 to 15 miles both days, just moving around and yeah, keeping up with him, especially, we stopped. So when we launched the drone, I kind of work as a spotter, and Vasily flies the drone and captures the footage. Some of it's B-roll, some of it's overheads of the anglers, landscapes, etc. But we're not exactly able to keep paddling and keep up. And a tournament angler, he's looking for the next spot. If nothing's happening, he's looking for the next spot. Well, you put the drone up for 10 minutes, you're 30 minutes behind Dwayne if he decides to move spots, because he's just, I've never seen a guy that goes after it like that. I mean, he covers more water than anybody I've ever seen.
You don't have to wonder why he does well.
Hands down.
It's clearly, connected to succeeding.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously I remember when we interviewed him, and I went through and looked at his Tourney X profile, and the numbers were just mind blowing. I mean, I think, 75%, if not more, of the tournaments he entered, he was in the top 10 or better. I mean, if that doesn't say anything, I don't know what does. But let's transition a little bit here, man. So I know some of these episodes end up on a little TV show here in the Midwest Outdoors. Is that going to continue into this year as well? For sure.
It's one of the docket. It's we're just kind of waiting for the right time for everything to settle in. But Mr. Jamie Dennison did some good things for us, and I'm really excited for that one to have its chance to go out there.
Nice.
And we've got a good partnership with Jerry Van Treek over at Midwest Outdoors is really taking a liking to the look, and they're most importantly, they're a TV outlet that's interested and committed to showing more kayak footage. It just, for some reason, doesn't always find its way on the television. You can find plenty of YouTube channels that are dedicated to kayak fishing, and Facebook videos, and anything over the socials. You can find it, but for the most part, like, the television audience doesn't really. I mean, Chad's got his program that I think he's on Fox, on the Fox networks, or he was on the Outdoor networks. Yeah. Now he's on Fox, I think, South. And I think Drew Gregory used to be on one of the television stations, although I'm not as familiar with his program. But for the most part, the industry is not, they're not paying attention to kayak anglers, despite it being the fastest growing demographic of anglers. That for some reason mainstream media hasn't really glommed onto it yet. And we're hoping with Midwest is a great partner to kind of put it out there, and we're hoping maybe that opens doors for other people.
Well, and I think that's just it, man. I mean, I could probably say on behalf of myself and everybody that's tuned in here, and everybody that's going to go back and watch this or listen to it on the podcast platforms, they'd all agree with me. Thank you, both of you, for doing what you do, because I think it, like you said, you've kind of started small, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, the fact that you guys have already, what is this, your second season with Midwest Outdoors, or first?
This is our first. And like a lot of the video was kind of delayed this year because it took a little time to work out the ins and outs of, how do we shoot this for television? What do they expect on their end? We had been shooting. This was we really spent like the last 8 months developing this concept. We shot the very first Boundary Waters trip in 2018, which was the camping trip. And then it really started back up in 2019 on June 1st, where we shot that trip. And then it was just kind of opportunistic. Hey, these guys are going to be at East West Harbor. Let's go to East West Harbor to shoot. There's the FLW Cup. There's lacrosse. There's this. There's that. Whatever event it was that we ended up being at. It was just kind of opportunistic. This year, we're kind of trying to pick our shots more as far as, where are we going? What are we going to shoot? Last year we were flying by the seat of our pants. There's no other way to describe it other than that. And I think this year, it's going to have a much more polished look, and you'll see a much more polished product this year. But it took a while to work the deal out with Midwest Outdoors, and I don't think we had the first segment was with Rodney Hicks, and I don't think that aired until maybe September of this year. So, there's going to be plenty of opportunity. I told the team, part of the team concept here is that we believe that 30 really highly promoted, highly supported anglers are much better than 500 of these 10% discount pro staffers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I made a commitment to all the guys on the team. Like, I'm putting you all on TV. That's it. End of story. So we're gonna hopefully make good on that promise by the end of the year this year. And the guys over at Midwest Outdoors, who are just a fantastic group of guys, are the ones that are making that a possibility. They're putting us in 96 million homes.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it, man. That's where I was kind of going with that. Is Midwest Outdoors, I think, is a huge stepping stone for you guys, and I can see it going even broader. Just like back talking about Vasily not being a fisherman, but the way he sees things and captivates things through a lens. Definitely appeals to those that may have never stepped foot in a kayak, thought about kayak fishing, things like that. I know you and I have had extensive talks, about your team and the thought process behind that. And, I commend you for that, man. I mean, any one of your team members that I've talked to is just like, Duke's the man. I mean, he takes care of us. He said he's going to do something. He does it. And let's face it, dude. I mean, some of the names on the team are just, how are you going to argue with that? I mean, it's one of the most stacked teams I've ever seen. I mean, I don't think there's any other company out there that can touch the Ketch Outdoors team in the kayak fishing community. There may be a few that are close, but I mean, let's be real.
I mean, and for a guy like me, I'm an angler, but as you know, I'm not a bass angler. But to be able to like share the water with these guys, I mean, dude, it's like fantasy band camp. I spent 4 days fishing with Dwayne Beatty. I mean, it's fun fishing with Dusty too. Although he's one of my local buddies, so I guess it's not like that kind of like awe of like, oh my God, there's this guy that's like really, this super talented guy that I get to fish with. But everyone, I mean, like, I'm fishing with guys that are right at the top of the heap all the time, and it's that's from a guy that is part fan, part competitor, part entrepreneur. I mean, that's just it's the coolest thing, man. It just really is, just an amazing. Just from my point of view, it's I get a kick out of it. And anything that excites you, you're gonna be good at, and it excites me, Going out and fishing with Jamie Brode and Dwayne Taft for a couple of days was amazing. Going out and sharing the water with Jamie Dennison, it's amazing, If we can ever get Kurt Smits to get get over his hate of the camera lens, I'll be able to go fishing with Kurt too. But he always kind of disappears. But that's as a guy who's is part fan, part hobbyist, part angler, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
I just want to point out, I think the one tournament we fished together the beginning of last year, it was like halfway through the morning, and Duke just goes by me. I'm like, you catch anything? He's like, no, I'm trolling for muskies now. I gave up. So he's not a huge bass fisherman, that's for sure. But if you're chasing muskies, Duke is all in. I guarantee it. So that's just it, man. I mean, that brings an interesting element, especially when you're following these guys around during a tournament. I know I had a conversation with Dusty not too long ago, and he was just like, man, I told Duke, just don't even follow me today. Like, I mean, do you see those guys get worked up or a little more nervous or feel like they have to perform when you guys are following them around? Or do you kind of just give them some breathing room? I know Vasily said, he felt bad that he got in Dusty's way a little bit one time up on St. Clair and stuff. But, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts and feelings on that? I mean, do the guys really you just said Kurt doesn't necessarily like being behind the camera, but,
Nope.
For everybody else that you videoed, I mean, do you see a different aspect in their fishing, so to speak, on the camera versus off camera?
I mean, I don't think so. I've fished with Dusty off the camera plenty and on the camera several times now. And I would say that he's the same guy. He's just as neurotic and he's like that ultra focused, super competitive guy. Whether we were just over at Clinton this weekend trying to get some footage. It was last weekend. I'm sorry, not yesterday, but last Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. And he's the same guy on tournament day that he is in front of the camera, not in front of the camera. Tournament day, just going out to try to catch some fish at Clinton. He's the same guy. He always is on the water. Everyone's different. Jamie Brode, like he'll be the first to tell you that he's better on the camera. He likes having us there, keeping him honest, so to speak, talking to him, taking the nerves away. He thinks more about the camera, and that doesn't make him nervous. Dwayne is kind of the same way. Dwayne, he told us, it doesn't bother me at all. Like after a while, I don't even realize you're there. And then there's other guys that you can definitely tell. Shout out to Craig Stormy from Dakota Lithium. He shit the bed when we went out and filmed him at East West Harbor. And you could tell he was nervous about it, and it's nothing against him. It was just one of those things, it was a tough day. It was a tough morning, and then it builds, right? Because you get out there, it's first lines in, and you're ready to throw your confidence bait. You've pre-fished. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes goes by. There's two dudes with a camera sitting there following you around all morning. And you're like, oh, damn, I'm not catching anything. I mean, that's nerve wracking, I guess. I mean, I've been a part-time subject and sometimes cameraman, and it doesn't really bother me. But then again, I've kind of seen behind the curtain. I've seen the creative process, and I know what goes into it. So, my mind's at ease. I know that if we shoot for, 48 hours over 4 days, that only the best 6 minutes show up. So in my mind, I can rationalize it. But there's some guys that are, like Dave Brook was a rise to the occasion kind of guy. He at East West Harbor, he had an amazing day, and we came out and videoed him. He had no pre-fish, and he finished third at that big event. So everyone's a little bit different when it comes to
what do you call that guy?
What's that?
What do you call that guy? I think you called him by the wrong name.
Apache Dave, Mr. Apache Dave.
Oh man, what a character! I love that guy. I mean, it's super cool to see. Yeah,
that's all I can think of.
It's super cool to see these guys. Yeah. It's super cool to see these guys perform on the water. And like I said, man, it just brings a whole new aspect to it. From those both inside and outside the kayak fishing community. So, I mean, this was a question and a thought I had as I was writing down my notes for this evening was, what do you guys think has been the biggest struggle or mishap while you guys are out on the water filming?
Weather.
Weather.
trying to, yeah, I think, and maybe even the same for the anglers. I think it's uncanny the parallels you can draw between, fishing and shooting, because when they're having a bad day, you can probably guess that I'm having one too. And most of the time,
Sure.
I'm like I said, trying to keep my distance. So if I'm any if I'm any amount of distance away from you, I'm having a hard time getting you in the waves. So yeah, I think it's wind, waves, and then the next would probably be attitude. If somebody's having a bad day, the last thing I want to do is get in there and say, hey, can you do this again? Or and maybe it would be better if we go over there. That's, I think, the last thing they want to hear.
Or, hey, hold
Sure.
this fish so we can get underwater footage.
Yeah.
At least
Exactly.
Taking up valuable
I'd agree with
time during a tournament, So
yeah,
I mean,
I'd agree with that 100%. The weather is by far the variable that's the most it's the most difficult to deal with, especially when if it's raining, you got to keep a camera lens dry. When it rains enough, the nice cameras that we're using, we don't run them, and so that we end up kind of limited to GoPro footage. And Vasily, I mean, he never. Some of that people don't think about. He never launches a drone over land anymore. All right, we launch that drone over water. We land it over water, and I mean that's another problematic thing when you're pitching and rolling in waves. Have fun trying to land that drone back on the front hatch of your Hobie. It's not easy. Vasily makes it look easy, but it's certainly not easy.
Yeah, and conversely, when the weather changes, that's usually what makes for the most interesting footage. So that's when I want to fly the drone, and that's when I want to pull out the good camera. But if you're trying to keep up with somebody, if you're getting pushed around, it's really adversarial, and there's not really a whole lot you can do to make it better. I think getting closer is all I've got. If I get right up next to you, maybe I can make it work. But yeah, it does make for an adventure. It's fun. I'm glad to do it, but it can be frustrating at times.
I bet, man. I mean, and you bring in that, you just mentioned that, guys can get aggravated with you sometimes, especially if they're having a bad day. And I think you guys do a pretty good job showing not only the high side of kayak fishing, but you've also shown some of that lower side when guys are out there struggling, and then see them actually, make that 180 and, have a stellar day. So kudos to you guys for doing that as well, man. Because let's face it, kayak fishing, especially tournament fishing, isn't all sunshine and rainbows, ladies and gentlemen. We've all been there, man. We've all had those struggling days that were up and down like a roller coaster. And I think you guys have captivated some of that for sure. No,
and really that's what I want to get the most. It's something that I need to work on better, is to show kind of the moments where things aren't going exactly how you want. I think the most memorable thing for me was shooting Jamie Broad in Louisiana, and he missed a fish that was, even I could tell it was big. And I'm already shooting, so I don't have to change anything. And secretly I'm sitting there, I don't want to say, with schadenfreude, because I didn't want him to miss the fish, but I also didn't want to miss him having what I think we all can understand happens out there. I know I miss shots that I wish I had gotten. And I know that this is just a part of the game. And some days, like when we went out with Dusty and David Brook the other day, it was tough on all of us. So I do want to show that. I think that that's a big part of what makes this challenging and fun. But it's hard to stick a camera on someone in someone's face when they're not feeling good. And I definitely, it rubs off on me. I really, what I want to do is I want to feed off of the enjoyment and the passion they have for the sport. But I think there is a contrast there, and that's sort of my job to show that. But I don't wish it, but I think there's more to come.
Well,
It happens,
I'll tell
man.
you, that fish that Jamie Brode missed was a 10-pounder all day. I'll go on record as saying that that's the biggest bass that I've ever seen firsthand. I mean, maybe down in Texas they see them like that all the time, but that was 10, 11 pound fish all day. And so to see him lose that was it was brutal. I felt, I mean, I was like, oh man, it was just it was brutal to watch it. Cause Vasili's, that was really his first shoot, kind of shooting with the team. And I just don't think he quite understood at that time what that fish in the national championship would have meant. I mean, it was. Well,
I didn't get the gravity of it, but I did see his kayak doing, go from 3 o'clock to 12 as soon as he grabbed on. So I knew something was happening.
I know. I'd have a few choice words, a few broken rods, maybe half my tackle in the bottom of the lake after losing a fish like that. I mean, you want to get some depressing footage, man. Just follow me around for a day. I have rough days all the time, man. But using a 10-pound
out to that private lake of yours anytime.
I mean, dude, the door is always open for you, brother.
I know. We're shooting out there. That is a little slice of heaven right there. I tell you what.
Don't give away all my secrets. But I mean, Duke's exactly right, man. I mean, losing a fish like that in the national championship, I mean, that could change your whole demeanor for the rest of the entire tournament, And to bounce back from that is definitely a story that should be captivated for sure, no doubt. So, I mean, we talked about bad mishaps. What do you guys think is probably your funniest moment on the water with some of the Ketch guys?
Nothing appropriate for podcast format, that's for sure.
I wouldn't expect anything less. So a PG-13 story. Give us something.
I mean, to me, that the crowning moment was, we're shooting on DSLR. So the part of what gives the videos the look is that we're able to change lenses, and it really gives the video a different look. Because it's not all shot in the same lens, and it was just one of those things where Vasily ended up having the correct lens on. He was shooting in, I think it was 240 frames per second, and then he caught at the time it was Dusty's personal best smallmouth. We didn't weigh it. It was probably 6.5 pounds or so, 21.5 inches at the Hobie Bass Open Series, and when you shoot it in that low frame or that high frame rate, you could get every last tail flip, and you can see that fish. It's got one hook from a spook just barely stuck in its lip, and then he turns around, and it's the most honest moment that Vasily captured all year. He turns around and looks right at us, and he's got this smile on his face like, oh, can you believe that? And to me, that was the awesome moment. That was like really, that's one of those things where it's just special to be there. It was the first time ever that I've been happy to be on the water without a rod in my hand, like just to witness what he did that day, and the fishing that, the performance that he put on that day one of that Hobie Bass Open Series was amazing. And to have that little bit of footage, was just to me that was like the crowning jewel so far as far as like the good stuff that we've been able to get a hold of.
I know the exact shot you're referring to, man, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's just got that look of like, oh yeah, it's going down. And I mean, Vasily, good job on making sure it was on 240 instead of like 60 or 30.
Well, the water was like glass that day, so that helped a lot. But yeah, and every trip has its own signature feel to it, and that's also another thing that's really great about doing these shoots is that they're all so memorable. They're all very different too. From Arkansas to more recreational ones like Colorado. There's always something to take away from it, and when you get back to the Airbnb or whatever it is, and you pull up the back of the camera, and the person's reaction is the highlight, and not their personal best flipping out of on the top water in slow motion, then you're doing all right.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, we're just past an hour here. Just want to say thanks for everybody tuning in. I'm just got 2 more questions for you guys, and then we'll wrap this thing up, man. So, I mean, cameras. What kind of camera are you shooting off of, Vasily?
So the main camera is a Nikon D850. I have a couple of accessories that come with that. So I use a monopod on the Kayak. I think a lot of times that's, what saves rough water. What saves like a really bad shoot could be turned into something usable. And a Rode mic on top of that. So if there's anything worth hearing, that we try to catch that alongside there. I do use action cameras. GoPros are great. I try to stick to what the strong suits are. So an action camera is best used when it's mounted on something. First person view, maybe a chest mount. Selfie stick is great. I think that's definitely something that shouldn't be discounted. And then of course the drone is a DJI Phantom 4 Pro.
Nice.
Which is really similar to an action camera. It has a little more flexibility on aperture and exposure. You can do a little more than what you can on a GoPro, but really just varying the shots, I think, is the most important thing, because there's been times where convenience was the topic, and the iPhone came out, especially when things get a little chaotic. When we're trying to catch up to somebody,
sure.
and I'm holding, when you're going over waves and you're holding a camera in one hand and a coffee in the other, there's a situation where you just need to get out of camera fast, and it doesn't matter what it is. So even
sure.
an iPhone becomes a tool in the toolkit. And I think what's most important is just picking what that camera is strong, what its capabilities are really for. So to that point, I think the glass is the most important thing. So having a zoom lens, a wide angle lens, and a macro lens is probably going to be advantageous. But my favorite is a 50 prime. That is a fixed lens. You can't zoom in or out. It's one of the more difficult things to work with on the water, but it pays off if you can be in the right place. There you go. That's it.
There you go.
It doesn't look
the nifty 50, baby.
Yeah, it doesn't impress when you're out in the field, but but when you get home, you're happy you used it. And
it's not the size of the lens, bro. It's the motion of the ocean.
it's where you put it. And sometimes I'm in the right place at the right time to satisfy. So.
Right on. I dig it. Yeah, I know. I mean, nifty 50s, man. They call these like throwaway lenses. I mean, they run $150, but yeah. This will change how everything looks. I probably should be using this tonight on my DSLR as we're streaming this, but I got lazy and I didn't want to swap it out. Sorry you didn't get the full effect of this beautiful face. Insert laugh now. And you know,
Slap production values, bro.
but so Vasily, we'll end this with you, man. So there's a lot of guys out there running GoPros on their kayaks, trying to get some camera footage, you know, to put on YouTube, stuff like that. If you had to give pointers on you know, camera angles, what to shoot in, things like that, just a quick rundown, man. What would your recommendations be to help folks, you know, make their videos that much better? So
Yeah, so I think the first thing would be just use what you've got. If you've got a GoPro, then you're ahead of the game. I started with, besides the Handycam, the Sony Handycam in '98. I used a GoPro for the longest time, and it was the thing I had the most fun with. It really can do everything you need it to, next to shooting, I don't know, wildlife footage or something. But it does what you need it to. And the most important thing is just using it, getting started and getting out there. I think if I had generic advice, it would be to get some of the components that are available. They're really cheap. You can find them with a click. They're pretty well understood at this point. You know, they've got suction cup mounts, you've got selfie sticks, and all the like, and those are all really great for what they are. So I think once you've take inventory of what you have and you've used it a couple times and you just know how it works, go have fun with it. Vary your shots. Try not to just point it at somebody and put them in the center. Add a little perspective, get down on their level. Use a rule of thirds, which is meaning just put the person, the subject in a part of the screen that shows a little more than just, you know, what you're seeing. So show what they're about to, try to anticipate what they're going to do and move with them as they do it. I think about what you're shooting for. If you, most people think they're have to be doing something, you know, impressive right away. I don't think that's true. I think you should be doing this to entertain yourself, almost as if you're practicing your guitar or an instrument if you're trying to learn. Just play with it, get comfortable with it, explore the different settings. So with a GoPro, I would say, don't just turn it on and hit record. See what frame rates are available, see what aspect ratios there are. It's not that dynamic. There's a lot to be figured out, and it's user friendly. So I think don't shoot passively. Get involved. Really feel what you're shooting and get in there. Get down and dirty.
very cool, man. I like it, man. I mean, the only way you're going to learn and improve, I think, is just by doing it more. I mean, I can speak from experience on that. I mean, I still suck, but, you know, I still try to, you know, put my cameras in different spots and things like that. And not only that, trying to film, you know, some of the guys I fish with, man. I think it's cool. I have a lot of fun doing it, and I'm sure you do as well, man. I mean, I like how you put it towards the beginning of this, that, you know, guys are fishing for fish and you're fishing for shots. So you guys are kind of running a parallel there and doing something very similar, you know. So I dig that.
There's
I dig
an
that very much,
equivalency there, and I think the best thing you can do if you're trying to get better at shooting is to connect with your subject, to feel what they're feeling, and to best showcase that so that you can help other people relive that experience as best as is possible. And it's not always the highest resolution that can make that happen. A lot of times it's just, what are you interested in, and finding the best way to use the tool that you have to make that possible for people who aren't there.
Very cool. Very cool. I dig it, man. So what can we expect to see next out of Ketch Outdoors? who's up next on the docket? Can we spill those beans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a little later this week, you'll see it'll actually be a reboot. We did, to put the team's mind at ease early in the season, we did a little bit of a cut from the Boundary Waters trip that we did earlier in 2019 in June of 2019. So there's a little there's like a few minutes of footage to kind of show what that's all about. There'll be a little bit more of a complete production the following week. We'll be shooting down with, we're going to be shooting two events, actually, the old 2 birds, 1 stone routine down at Santee Cooper on the 29th of February. Yes, there is a 29th this February. We'll be down at Santee Cooper. We're going to be shooting, Ketch is a sponsor of the Mid-Atlantic division of KBF, so we're going to be down there shooting that event. And then also we're sponsoring Ron Himmelhaver started running the Trophy Catfish Kayak Anglers, and they actually have an event running at the same time on the same body of water. So we're going to go down there. We're hopefully going to shoot some big cats and some big bass. And then after that, I think the next stop is going to be Logan Martin in March for the Bassmaster. And then, well, we'll see about the Bassmaster. I don't know how friendly they're going to be to us shooting footage. And then after that, obviously the national championship first week of April. That's kind of what's on the docket, and we'll be kind of piecing together some other stuff, to kind of fill in the blanks. Vasily and I aren't big on planning, as you can see. We kind of do everything at the last minute. Yeah, exactly. Authentico, bro. So we'll be filling in with some stuff. There's always the Boundary Waters trip, which that's kind of like it's turned into the Ketch retreat, every year, and we've got a great little location up in northern Minnesota. We don't do the canoe thing anymore because permitting has become such a hassle to get groups bigger than 3 or 4 guys, and as many watercraft is just a pain. So we audibled last year and we found a little camp up there. It's awesome. And we're going back. We're going to go back. We're going to do a day of muskie footage and a whole ton of big smallmouth. We had the last trip, we took 2 guys that had never caught a muskie before, put them both on their first muskie. Nice. And then the smallmouth pike fishing was, it was out of this world. We didn't really catch that trophy fish. We caught plenty of like 18, 19, 20-inch smallmouth. We didn't really catch a trophy smallmouth or a trophy pike, but the action was nonstop. And I'm hoping to have a few gems as far as because that's the one thing you can't control with a video.
Yeah, right.
You always want to go out there and put a big green fish up in front of the camera, but it doesn't always happen. And so the numbers were there last year. And so, I feel like this year we should end up with some real gems.
Very cool, man. I know there's some word that Ketch Outdoors might show up to a paddle and fin meetup. So keep your eyes open and your ears peeled, folks.
I mean, maybe if you wanted to do the paddle and fin meetup up in the Boundary Waters in early June, that would be a pretty cool place to do it.
I think I just canceled all my tournaments for June.
We'll be back in time to do the 6th at Lake St. Clair with KBF.
We'll be chatting real soon, my friend. Real soon.
All right.
We'll figure it out. We'll keep you guys posted. Gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for taking time away from the families tonight to sit down, chat, talk to the people, talk to myself. And at the beginning of this, we told you guys, share the post. We were going to pick a winner for a paddle and fin catch board with your name etched in it. And I left this up to the paddle and fin hosts. And it looks like they picked Justin Staley. So, Justin, if you're listening, thanks for sharing, brother. shoot us a message. We'll get you set up with your fresh new catch board. So with that being said, man, you guys got any final thoughts? Anything you want to share to the good people out there tuning in?
Drink Ham's beer right there.
Wouldn't expect anything less from Duke. Don't go drinking with Duke because Hams will give you a headache the next morning. Not speaking from experience. Vasily, anything, my friend?
No, I just hope I hope people get something out of what we're doing. I know I do, and there's the guys that we follow. That's really been great to develop a relationship with people that I know are doing what they love, and so I just hope that everybody finds big fish this year.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I dig it. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes another session of the lives. Hope you guys are all digging them. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, sharing, and we appreciate the love. We had another record month, record week here at Paddle and Fin. So thank you, everybody that continues to spread the word and show us some love and tuning into all our segments. Once again, you guys, if you're tuning in here on the live, schedule is scrolling across the bottom. You can find that on any major podcast platform: Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Anchor. There's like 13 of them. So if you go to your podcast platform that you listen to all your podcasts on, just search Paddle, the letter N, and Fin, and you will find it. For those that just tuned in, you can either go back and watch. If not, this will be uploaded for you guys to listen to on the podcast platforms in the morning. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, tight lines and smooth paddling. Peace. Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N, and Fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddle and fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N, and fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at Paddle and Fin. Shout out to our show supporters: Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You could put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.